Answer to this one is 6. For this one, you should have a negative 16 minus 12 minus 11, which is a negative 39. Answer should be 0 for this one. Answer should be 15. Answer is 16. So we have 1 out of 8 with homework, and that's going to be 13%. Alright, you got to pick a number from 1 to 20, but since you're the only one, I'm going to let you pick 5 numbers. Pick 5 numbers and drop them off up here. Here are the winning numbers: 3, 7, 9, 12, and 19. Multiple choice. Alright, the answer is 13. Here are the homework answers. Alright, for the first one, here's how we're going to do your points. They're 1 point for each thing that you get right. So if you get the zeros right, it's 1. Axis of symmetry is 1. And the vertex would be 1 point, and then the graph is also 1 point. So your zeros are negative 4, 1. Your axis of symmetry is negative 1.5. And your vertex is negative 1.5, 6 1/4. And there's your graph. For this one, zeros are negative 5 and 1. Axis of symmetry is negative 2. Vertex is negative 2, negative 9. And there's your graph. Number 3, your zeros should be a negative 3.2 and a negative 1.8. And the axis of symmetry is a negative 2.5. And the vertex is negative 2.5 and 1 1/4. Number 4, the zeros are negative 4, negative 3. Axis of symmetry is negative 3.5. The vertex is negative 3.5, negative 4th. And there's the graph. And for number 5, the zeros are negative 5, 6. And the axis of symmetry is a half. The vertex is a half and a negative 3 1/4. Unfortunately, I left a negative sign in my graphing tool when I went back to do this from the previous equation. So your graph should look like this, something similar. A very poorly drawn version, but the best I can do on the spot. It should go up. Today's objective: we're still going to find the zeros and make a rough graph of a function, also with the vertex and the axis of symmetry. So here's the first example. Upon first sight of this problem, what do you think we should do?
Take out a negative 1.
Alright, we'll take out a negative 1 and be left with x squared minus 5x minus 7. Set it equal to 0. Is there anything I can do now? Can I factor it?
Yes.
What two numbers multiply to get a negative 7 and add to get a negative 5?
Ninth graders D through K to the gym for pictures. Ninth grade D through K.
You cannot factor that. So we have to go to what? Quadratic formula. What's the A? What's B
5,
and C?
7.
All right, so the formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And when I plug that in, I will get a negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times a times c, and then over 2 times a. So to simplify under the square root sign, I'll have a 25, and is it going to be plus or minus for my operation? Plus. We have a minus, a negative there. So plus 28. And then over a negative 2. So add those two numbers together to get a 53. And once you reach that point, you have to do that evaluation twice, once with a plus sign and once with a minus sign. So in a calculator, you're going to want to do the top part first. We'll do the plus part. This will be the plus. This will be the minus. So it'll be negative 5 plus the square root of 53. And just hit equals after that to get an answer, but then you have to hit divide by negative 2. And if I round that to the 10th place, what answer should I get? Yeah, negative 1.1 is going to be that first zero. So do the same thing again, except you have to use the minus this time. So negative 5 minus the square root of 53. Hit equals and get an answer. It's approximately negative 12 something. But then hit divided by negative 2. It comes out to be a 6.1. So this is your first zero and this is your second. Alright, make note of that for when we go to the graph paper. And coming up next is the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. So I would put in a negative, and then my b was a positive 5. My a was a negative 1. So I get a positive 5 over 2, or it's 2.5, whichever. We'll make note of that. What do I do with that 2.5 now? Right. Plug that into the original equation, which was y equals a negative x squared plus 5x plus 7. So if you plug in 2.5, you'll have to go back and evaluate. If you just do it all on a calculator, that's fine. If you, on the first part here, you would have a negative 6.25. And then add to that 5 times 2.5. And if you round it to the 10th place, you should get what? 13.3, right. So we'll do 13.3 for that one. So the vertex is 2.5 and 13.3. Alright, so we have a vertex of 2.5 and 13.3. What should I do to my scale? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I got to change those numbers. And can I go up by 2?
The remainder 9th graders need to report to the gym for pictures. The rest of the 9th graders, please report to the gym.
So there's 14.
2, 4, 6, 8.
8. There we go. I don't think 18 goes between 6 and 10. So the vertex was 2.5 and then 13.3. So we'll go over here to 2. I'll keep these ones. There's 2 and 3, so 2.5 is right here, and 13.3 would be approximately there. And your zeros were negative 1.1, which is approximately there. And 6.1, this is going to be 4, 5, and then 6. Here's 6.1. Now we have to find some other points. What points can I use to find 2 more points? Yeah, negative 2 and 7, and that's going to come from right here. If we go 1 to the left, there's negative 2, and we go 1 to the right, there's positive 7. If you plug in a negative 2, you're going to come back with a negative 7. So we're going to plug in negative 7 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've used a perfect piece of graph paper for this. And you also get back negative 7 on that side as well. So that pretty much stretches it out. And here's the graph. There's the left-hand side, and whoa, that one went a little bit too far. So I'm going to cheat and do this. Knock out some grids in the process. That's much better. For this first practice problem, you just have to find the zeros and drop it off up here. Round to the 10th place if necessary. For the zeros, you're going to have to use the quadratic formula.
I need all the sophomores, last name beginning A through D. Sophomores A through D, report to the gym.
It'll be a negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 3 over a negative 2 times, not a negative 2, just a positive 2 over 2, or times 2. Getting off, the announcements foul me up. Every time the announcements come on, I can't do anything right after that. So negative 6 plus or minus 36 plus 24, and then over 4. So this boils down to 6 plus or minus the square root of 60 over 4, and you're going to have to do that twice. Once with plus, once with minus. So with plus, you're going to have negative 6 plus the square root of 60, and then divide by 4. You should have 0.4. And then negative 6 minus the square root of 60, and then divide by 4. Negative 3.4. The bonus is the axis of symmetry for this equation. This one should be a negative half. Axis of symmetry again. Answer should be 1/3. This is the axis of symmetry. Drop it off, and it's for the same problem that we did for the last practice. So they're consistent all throughout. The axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. So it would be a negative 6 over 2 times 2, which is a negative 6 over 4, but you must simplify that to a negative 3 over 2, or a negative 1.5, or a negative 1.5. Alright, we just found the axis of symmetry to be a negative 1.5. So now you have to use that to find the vertex. Alright, for the vertex, you have to put in a negative 1.5. So it's 2 times negative 1.5 squared plus 6 times negative 1.5, and then minus 3. So in your calculator, if you square negative 1.5 and multiply by 2, you should get 5. And then you'll end up subtracting 9 because you'll have negative 4 and then minus 3. You'll come back with negative 7. Did anybody get negative 7?
No, because I didn't put negative 1.5 in the parentheses.
That should be a negative 7.5. My fault. Negative 7.5. But it's the vertex. So it's negative 1.5, comma, negative 7.5. Solve for vertex.